Guys, today I want to talk to you about the double stockinette stitch. So, you probably, not necessarily, but that's okay. You probably know the simple stockinette stitch if you're here for the double one, right? So, here is a very simple um, little fabric of the simple stockinette stitch. So, what do we see? Well, we have this braided part, which is like very nice, and we all love this knitting braided part, right? It is very classical, the stockinette stitch. And you have the other side, which is the purl side, right? So these little waves like that, and it's the purl side, right? So this is quite nice, and I actually made myself like a little scarf of it. I actually wear it every day, so now it's a bit worn off. But here you go. I want to show you something. So, hi, by the way, it's me. So, here's the simple stockinette stitch for a scarf. What do you notice? Yes, it is curling. It is actually curling a lot, and that's totally normal. It's a characteristic of the stockinette to curl. Why is it like that? Well, if you're really curious about it, it's because, that's what I read. It's because those stitches, the pearls one, are a little bit taller than the stockinette one, the knit one. So the pearls are a bit taller than the knit. And as a consequence, when you add up rows and you stack them up, then at some point it's going to start curling. So it is totally normal. If you have one side that is a bit taller, a bit larger than the other side, then it's going to curl. So it is okay if you're going to make a sweater or you're going to work in a round, it's going to be totally okay because it's not going to crawl on you. The two sides are going to be either sewn, two panels sewn together, or, well, you're going to work in the round, so it doesn't matter. It's not going to curl. But if you want to do a scarf, if you want to make a scarf as a stockinette stitch, what do you do? So some people talk about, you know, um, blocking the yarn, which doesn't always work, especially for that. It just depends on a lot of factors, and it's gonna go back to curling at some point. So, but I want a stockinette scarf. I want this beautiful braided pattern as a scarf. So what should I do? So blocking it is not the ideal solution. Some people add a border. Some they add a little purling border like that on the sides, but I don't know. That's not really what I want. I just want braids in the front, right? So what should I do? And for a scarf, maybe it's not ideal to have one side of this and one side of this. Maybe you want something reversible, right? So here comes in play our double stockinette stitch. And this is a little scarf that I'm starting here. It is a double stockinette stitch. And look at that, guys. It is incredible. It is here. So that's the double stockinette stitch. It is not curling at all, right? It is completely flat. And also it is completely reversible. So you don't have a purl side. Okay, so how does this work? Well, you know that the stockinette pattern, usually it's worked one row of knit. So I'm not going to teach the basic stitches here, but you can see other tutorials for that. So it's one row of knit and one row of purls. Very simple. Here, or can you believe it? Even simpler, it's always the same row. So it's one row repeat when working flat, and I'm working flat here because we're making a scarf. One row repeat of one knit and one slip stitch with yarn in the front. So let me show you here. Okay, so let's prepare. So I'm bringing my yarn a bit closer to the needle, pushing it. And I'm holding my yarn in the left hand as a continental knitwear because it's a bit faster. And I'm originally a crocheter, so it's also a bit more natural, but it's a faster technique, I think. So I said one knit, one slip with yarn in the front. One knit, one slip with yarn in the front. So we're going to start with a knit. Okay, yarn in the front, and slip. One knit, yarn in the front, one slip. It is easier if you're a continental knitter also because you can just very easily bring the yarn forward or backward. But I mean, everyone has his preference and it's totally okay and totally fine with the classic English style. It's totally fine. It works very well as well. So here you go. One knit. So I knit one purl, one. I'm pretending I'm purling, right? Because when we purl, needles are gonna kiss each other, right? They're gonna like hello, and they're gonna greet each other. So they're in front to front. And I go in like that. My yarn is in the front. Don't forget. Hello, and I'm just gonna slip it. I'm not knitting. Okay. Here I enter here around under. I just knit one, and that's it. And now slip it with yarn in the front, yarn in the back, knit one, yarn in the front, slip it. Okay? Yarn in the back, knit one, yarn in the front, slip it. And here you go. It's just going to be like that all the way in all the rows. So it's a one row repeat. It's even easier than the previous one, than the simple stockinette stitch. You don't have to remember which row you were or to look at which side you are. You just need to alternate. So one slip with yarn in the front and one knit stitch with yarn in the back. One slip stitch with yarn in the front, one knit with yarn in the back. And look at how I bring the yarn in the front and in the back. It's very simple, so I'm going to show you. Yarn in the front, you slip it, yarn in the back, you knit one. Yarn in the front, slip it, yarn in the back, you knit one. Yarn in the front, you slip it, yarn in the back, you knit one, etc., etc., etc. Now, what if I'm receiving a phone call right now, I'm busy, I have to do something else, I just need to leave my project, and when I come back, I'm like, what was I doing? Oh, I have no idea. Is it a slip or is it a knit? So just look at your yarn on the right needle. If you don't know what, it's the needle which has the yarn, right? So it's the right needle. Well, how is your yarn right now? Well, look at my yarn. Look at this. Here, if I bring it, it's behind. You can see it. It's going behind. And I see the stitch is in the front of my yarn. And I see this is a little here. You see, I'll show you here. Those little loops means that it's a knit stitch. I just knit it. And it's a loop here we have. So it was a knit stitch, and I can tell it was a knit stitch. So I don't want a knit stitch because the yarn is in the back. So now I have to bring the yarn in the front and to do the slip stitch with the yarn in the front. So if your yarn is in the back, then you need to do the slip stitch. Okay, my yarn is naturally in the back. I'm bringing it in the front, and I'm just gonna slip it. Oh, yarn in the back, knit stitch. Oh, yarn in the front, slip stitch. Yarn in the back, knit stitch. Yarn in the front, knit stitch. Here you go. So if you have to leave your project, just look on the needles with the yarn, on the needle with the yarn, and look at how it is. Look how it is now. The yarn is in the front. It's naturally in the front, and it's not a knit stitch. Here you can see it is not. You don't see like here the little loops. You see just the yarn in the front. My yarn was in the front, so I have to put it in the back and knit. My yarn is in the back, so I have to put it in the front and purl and just slip. Okay, so I have to put it in the back and knit. My yarn is in the back, I have to put it in the front and slip. My yarn is in the front, I have to put it in the back and knit. And here you go. And if you're not sure, another tip You can also look at the left needle, the one that doesn't carry the yarn. And how is it right now? Well, what do you have? You have a slip one. This is a slip one. It is not knit. The knit one is with those little loops here. You can see this little braid. But here you don't have a braid. It's just a loop, and it was closed by a bit of thread here on top of it. So if you see this loop with a little collar on top, it means that it wasn't knitted. It was just slipped. And you slip a slip and you knit a knit. So it was slipped, so I slip it. This one was knit, you see? You see the little loops here? So I knit it. So you have to always keep knitting the knit one and slipping the slip one, all right? And that's how you have the double stockinette stitch. You're building the double fabric here. But that's very simple. When you have the result, it's very beautiful and for such a very, very simple pattern. Here you go. I don't think there's nothing to add. I mean, it is very simple and it is very nice and it's going to be completely flat and completely reversible. So let me finish the row. All right, you should always finish the row with a slip stitch. And you can see here, yarn is in the front. So it's a slip stitch and this one was knitted. So you should finish with a slip one and start with a knit one. If you start with a slip one, then you finish with a knit one. It's just very simple, you know. So it's got to be one way or the other. You can start either way. And that's it. That's how you get a very nice fabric, completely reversible. So I'm not lying. It is actually completely reversible in flat. And it is quite thick, guys. It's going to be a yarn eater. So don't forget to stock enough of balls unless you're sure that your nearby store is going to restock. Otherwise, make sure you have everything you need because it's a yarn eater. It's quite thick. Ideal for a scarf, but it's quite thick. I am working on 8mm needles here. It's a 20% wool yarn. And so these are 8mm. And I have a very thick fabric compared to the classic simple stockinette stitch. It is very, very thin, right, compared to this, we can see. So that's how, it's pretty stretchy. It's very, very stretchy actually. And honestly, I think it's beautiful. So here you go, that's for the double stockinette stitch. If you make a mistake, you have to, so I'll make another tutorial on mistake, but if you have to go back, don't forget that you're not knitting all the stitches. So you have to skip one every time. So if you're going backward, you have to skip one and not unknit. But that's for another tutorial. So I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed that, and as well as me. And I hope that you really love discovering the double stockinette stitch, which is really ideal for a scarf. Bye guys, and see you next time.